I would like to thank one of my subscribers, JG, for this article that came out in the Philadelphia Inquirer, October 24th, 2018. How fentanyl, the deadly synthetic opioid, took over Pennsylvania. Now, this drug addiction is so bad in Pennsylvania, it is found in every single county around the state. And December 2017, they called a state of an emergency because so many people were dying from the fentanyl in Pennsylvania that they had to call for a state of an emergency. And the morgues were being overwhelmed in every single county across the state. The first time Nikki Sacomano used fentanyl, she overdosed. It was 2016, and a 38-year-old from Kensington. And I can tell you that area is bad. When you go out to Kensington, first of all, there is drug dealing virtually on every single corner there. Number two, the hypodermic needles. It's almost like the moment you step out of your car, the hypodermic needles are everywhere. I mean, you can't step hardly, the grassy areas, it's just everywhere, all over there. And when you get there, you literally will see a lot of zombified people walking around on the streets. It is really bad in Kensington. Okay, so the fact that she's in Kensington, I can tell you, they used to have, and I don't know if they still do, but they used to have a whole bunch of heroin addicts in tents living out on the streets over there. Now, I don't know if they are still there because every now and then the police will go out there and run them off. Okay, so she had known that the drug she bought had been cut with the deadly synthetic opioid. She remembers injecting herself with a bag and then waking up surrounded by paramedics, frantically trying to revive her. Sacomano, who has been addicted to heroin for 10 years, was shaken, but before long, there was barely anything else to take but fentanyl to starve off the intense pain of withdrawal. Every corner, it seems, was selling it. Sacomano and other longtime heroin users found themselves forced to adapt. For younger users, like the 20-something who live in the camps off Lehigh Avenue, fentanyl is all they've ever known. Like others before them, many graduated from using legal painkillers to illicit opioids in the past few years, except for when they turned to the streets to feed their addiction. They were buying a drug much more powerful than their older counterparts had started on. Young and old are paying for it with their lives. Fentanyl was present in 84% of Philadelphia's 1,217 fatal overdoses last year, and in 67% of the state's 5,456 overdose deaths in 2017, according to a wide-ranging report on the state of the opioid plague in Pennsylvania released this month by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. Now, there was something in here that caught my eye. Now, that's when, that is the time they called the state of an emergency. And I think that was the same time they realized that fentanyl was the main culprit in killing everybody over there in Pennsylvania that was taking it. And also, in Pennsylvania, they also have the highest drug overdose rates, I think, in the country for Hispanics. And in Pennsylvania, actually more Hispanics die from drug overdoses than even white people. White people are like second to the Hispanics, especially around the Philadelphia area. The report shows how over the last 5 years, the opioid plague ballooned into an overdose crisis, how fentanyl contaminated the state's heroin supply, overwhelmed county morgues with overdose victims, and shocked advocates, people in addiction, and law enforcement officials alike with its sudden ubiquity. But to all of them, the explosion of fentanyl makes a kind of terrible sense. Fentanyl is significantly cheaper and produced than heroin. It draws significantly larger profit. It's significantly more powerful and more addictive than heroin, even Kensington's supply, which has long been known as the cheapest and purest in the country. These days, Sacramento uses a combination of heroin and fentanyl, even though she hates it. You get sicker, she said. You need to get more fentanyl more often. It makes being able to get well and stay well even harder, but you can't find anything else. A dramatic shift, pure economics. That's what law enforcement officials say is driving the rise of fentanyl in Pennsylvania. It has legitimate use as a drug to treat serious pain, like that in cancer patients, and has been on the illicit drug market for at least 15 years, said Pat Traynor, spokesman for the Philadelphia branch of the DEA. But it's mostly turned up in unusual overdose rashes and would disappear from the scene again. 2 or 3 years ago, we really saw a pretty dramatic shift, Traynor said. It was initially seen as a cut or adulterant in low-quality heroin, and it's really shift now that it's pretty much largely, but not completely, replaced most of the heroin supply in Philadelphia. So you can see on this map, these are all of the counties, and you can clearly see all of the heroin use in Pennsylvania is the green. The red are the areas with fentanyl. Prescription opioids is the orange areas, and they have a purple other illicit drugs. I don't really see anything in this map in purple, and then no data. So it doesn't mean they don't have drug use there. These are just the counties that didn't report anything to the CDC. That's all it means. That's 2015, but when you get to 2016, you see a lot of the counties that were once green turn to red. So it's more fentanyl in 34 counties, 20 counties, heroin, and 9 counties, prescription opioids. And by the time 2017, it's like the damn whole state turned to fentanyl. So the red, now you have 56 counties with fentanyl, 3 counties with heroin, and you have 5 counties with prescription opioids, and you just have one right here, Forest, which is listed as other illicit drugs. Wow. What a change. 15, 16, 17. Wow. Woo. When you look at this map, you can understand why they called for that state of an emergency. Damn. Man, this is terrible. All right. In Philadelphia, he said, a kilogram of heroin, or 2.2 pounds, sells for $50,000 to $80,000. And a drug trafficker can make about $500,000 in profit off of it. Well, now you know why people take a chance and get all into drug trafficking. It's the money. A kilogram of fentanyl sells for $53,000 to $55,000 and is 50 to 100 times stronger and can turn a profit of up to $5 million. Wow. I guess now we understand why so many people are buying it off of the dark web. For a lot of drug trafficking organizations, it's that simple, said Trainer. Most of the fentanyl that end up in Pennsylvania is manufactured in China. And I'm going to say this to you again, ladies and gentlemen. China is doing warfare on these white folks. And I believe most of them know it. But when you put it out there, they just play stupid. But I think they know China's doing this to them. China knows what they're doing. If you look at their history, especially if you go back into the 40s, before all of China was communist, this is what they did. They used drugs on the areas that were not communist, and they sat for about 3 years. And they kept pouring all the opium into those areas. And when the people were so high and addicted to the drugs, they couldn't fight them off. So they were able to win over those areas and make the entire country communist. So for them, drugs is part of warfare. There's a reason why they're not trying to stop the fentanyl coming into the U.S. It's a deliberate act. Okay, so most of the fentanyl in Pennsylvania is manufactured in China and smuggled through Mexican drug trafficking organizations into the United States, along with same routes used to traffic heroin, according to the DEA's report. You know, ladies and gentlemen, the DEA has been around for 50 years. And in the 50 years of their existence, they have never stopped drugs from coming into this country in 50 years. So you have to ask, how effective is this organization really? A few drug busts here and there, that's not putting a dent in all of these drugs that are coming into the country. And it never will. I think they purposely are not stopping it because they know what a huge profit it makes in America. Okay, people have also tried to make it closer to home. However, unlike heroin, which is derived from opium poppies, fentanyl, and its analogs can be produced in a lab. Earlier this year, DEA agents raided what they thought was a methamphetamine lab in a hotel room in Western Pennsylvania. To their surprise, it turned out that the room's occupant had been trying to make fentanyl, seeking out fentanyl. Earlier this year, researchers from the Pennsylvania Department of Public Health, conducting a survey of fentanyl users at Kensington Needle Exchange, posed a question to 400 people in active addiction. They knew that most of the city's heroin supply had already been tainted with fentanyl and wanted to know how people in addiction were reacting. And so they asked drug users what they would do if they knew that fentanyl was in the drugs they were buying. The answers they received shocked them. Of the drug users the health department surveyed, 45% told researchers that they weren't trying to avoid fentanyl at all. There you go. Supply and demand. If your users are demanding a drug, it's going to always be pouring into the country. And they're already telling you they demand the fentanyl. So 45% told these researchers they wanted that fentanyl, that they would be more likely to use a bag of fentanyl. So they're not pushing it away, they want it. There were more acceptance. It had become part of the community in a way it hadn't been initially. It was actually something people were going for because it was an enhanced high, said Kendra Viner, manager of the Department of Opioid Surveillance Program. And people between 25 and 34 years old were significantly more likely to say they would seek out fentanyl. The interviews on Kensington Avenue in recent weeks, drug users say they felt they didn't have much choice, though the rush of a fentanyl high have initially felt stronger and better than heroin. It also made returning to heroin difficult. Even though fentanyl was more dangerous, they said, their tolerance for opioids has become so high that heroin was not enough to stave off withdrawal. Before people were scared of fentanyl, people wouldn't do it. But now my body is hooked on it, said Kia, a 23-year-old interviewed near the Emerald Street encampment last week. If I wake up and I don't do heroin cut with fentanyl, I'm still sick. And I believe that. You know, the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, these people that are strung out on these drugs, they've been strung out for years. They didn't just start getting into these addictions. They've been doing this for years. But the needle exchange in Kensington, I heard about that even probably more than 10 years ago. They've been doing that for a long, long time. So I also did a video on how they're trying to set up a safe house. And from what I'm understanding, it's already there. They just didn't have their grand opening yet. Now, the DOJ is threatening to arrest people who open them up and shut them down. So who knows what will happen. But I know Philadelphia and I think San Francisco both are ready to do their grand opening real soon on those safe houses where they can go and do all the illegal drugs they want in front of a medical professional monitoring them. It's amazing, right? A legalized crack house. Because really, that's all it is when you think about it. But I will leave the link to this article in the description box, ladies and gentlemen, and you can please tell me what you think. Wow, just looking at that map is just mind-blowing. Can you imagine what it looks like in 2018? It's probably all red now. But please tell me what you think. Please share the video. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And I will see you on the next video. Peace, family.